Like Father, Like Daughter, a comic written by my good friend Cat Comic Uno with art by Wayne Brown, is celebrating its 4th issue and a successful Kickstarter for the 4th issue. And what better way to talk about a 4th issue and review it than on a 400th comic book review celebration weekend. Now, before we get into issue number 4, though, let's go back a little bit and talk about issues past. So, as you guys know, we're at issue 4, so I'm holding issue number 1 in my hand right here. Issue number 2 is right here, whoop, on autograph wall, because we have one of Like Father, Like Daughter up there for everybody to see every time we do a live stream and we face autograph wall. And then we have the recent issue, well, the not any more recent, but the next issue, which is issue number 3. Issue 4 is coming out very, very soon and is out digitally already from what I hear. So anyway, there's also an issue 1.5 and 2.5. We'll talk a little, 3.5, but we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So let's talk a little bit about the story and where things have gotten up to issue 3's end before we get into issue 4. So Casey, a normal schoolgirl living a normal life, has a boyfriend, has a best friend named Stephanie. She's normal. She's a normal person just trying to live out her life. And we find out that her father is invulnerable. A superhero who basically left his family to become a superhero 24/7. And of course, Casey holds it against Invulnerable because she grew up without a dad. So she has a bit of resentment for Invulnerable, to say the least. But then, one day, she develops superpowers. I'm not going to say how. Read issue number 1 and you'll find out how. But she does develop them. And she freaks out because, oh my god, I have my dad's powers now. She has speed, invulnerability. And she freaks out a little bit and she talks to her mom about it. She actually confides having these powers and that her father is invulnerable with her best friend, Stephanie. And they kind of have this best friend moment where basically Stephanie is helping Casey figure out her powers and how to use them. It helps her in her training. It's a really cool issue. And then what happens is the next issue, well, issue 1.5, we get introduced to another character called Wes, who becomes friends with Casey and Stephanie in issue number 2. But we get his backstory in issue 1.5. So issue 2, Casey still wants to learn a little bit more about her powers and how far she can go. So she goes to this comic nerd called West. And like I said, issue 1.5, you get a little bit of a background on West. You get to see Comic Duo in 1.5 as well. For anybody who knows Comic Uno, who knows Cat, Comic Duo is how she started on YouTube, which I like that reference in the book. So anyway, she goes to West for help and for, you know, more information about her powers, and she wants to learn more about her father's background without actually going to her father. So she figures, I'll go to a comic nerd who knows everything about my dad, and that's Wes. And, of course, she confides about having the powers with Wes, and Wes tries to help her out as much as she can, but then something happens. She has a vision, a dark vision, as a matter of fact, and now she's kind of questioning, did my dad have visions? And now she's kind of at the point where she's trying to figure out what this means and, you know, how this is all, you know, what she has to do next. And what happens is, and I'm throwing this all out of order, the father, we find out, actually is, he regrets kind of leaving the family to become a superhero 24/7. You know, he's writing this book to his daughter and writing all this, everything that's going on in his life, and how he kind of regrets leaving her and how sad it is and how much he's always thinking about her. And Casey, of course, doesn't know this. But he finds out then that Casey actually developed powers because there was the incident with her in it, in the paper, and a description of her. So he sends his friend out to kind of keep an eye on Casey. But at some point, as you guys all know, Invulnerable shows up and has a talk with her about her powers. And she wants nothing to do with him, of course. She doesn't want to be bothered. She's like, dude, you've not been in my life for so many years. I don't need you now. She doesn't even confess that she has the powers until a little bit later, where she's like, yeah, okay, fine, I have powers. And Invulnerable wants to help her, and he wants her to be a superhero. She's like, I don't want to be a superhero. I don't need to be a superhero. And the reason he's saying all this is because at the beginning of the 3rd issue, I really enjoyed the beginning of the third issue because it's all about this boy who's getting bullied, and he ends up bringing this gun to school, and he's getting bullied, and he pulls out the gun, and he's ready to kill the kid who's bullying him, and she comes in, Casey, and kind of stops him and calms him down and gets him the help that he needs, because bullying's bad, and any type of book that likes to show that off and show the ramifications of it and what really happens to the children and the kids being bullied is huge. So, and the father saw all this. He's like, you should be a superhero. And we get a couple of Spider-Man references within the books about great responsibility, great power. Spider Sense is brought up once. And anyway, he wants her to be a superhero, and she doesn't want any part of it. She truly and honestly does not want a part of that at all. She just wants to know his, at first she doesn't want to be bothered with him at all. He's like, you know what? I'm going to give you your space. You want to talk? You know what, if I'm, come back to this roof. And she takes the space, and she's like, you know what? I need to know about these visions. I need to know more. So she goes back and talks to him about it. She talks to him about her powers and tells him about the visions. And what she wants to know is his background, where he came from. We find out he was in an orphanage. He never really looked into where he came from. He just kind of ignored the past. And she's like, but this is where your powers came from. This is where you're from. This could involve, you don't even know if you're an alien. You need to know this stuff. And he never really wanted to look into it. He remembered the word island, seeing island once. But honestly, nothing beyond that. He believes her about the visions, but he doesn't have the visions. So this might be a new superpower. Who knows? But Casey, he says, let's go talk about it. Let's talk more about it. And she's like, I got to do stuff with Mom right now, so I can't do it now. He's like, oh, well, take a rain check then. She jumps off the roof, and that's the end. We also get issue 3.5 where Invulnerable is talking about how he regrets, like I said, what he did, and how much he wishes that he could have grown up with Casey and she could have been like his sidekick. He has this vision about him and her in the same clothes, and basically she being a superhero next to him, and him training her and being the father that he never really was. And I really like that issue as well. I like the turmoil that, he made a decision. It was a bad decision, and now he kind of is living with it, and he regrets and wishes that he can go back and change it, because this is what could have possibly been if he didn't do that. And that's where we leave off in the past. That was the end of issue number 3 and 3.5. So, before we get into issue number 4, this is a review, right? Let's start the review off right. And let's do it only the way we know how. With the intro. Alright, so like father, like daughter, issue number 4. As always, I'm going to give you guys 2 things, like I always do on Comic Frontline. Number 1, preview artwork is going to be going on over here on this side of the screen. While I also warn you guys, spoiler alert, we are going to talk about stuff that happened in issue number 4. So, just be warned in advance. But, anyway, let's get into Like Father, Like Daughter, issue number 4. This book, quite possibly, is, at this moment, my favorite issue in the series. And there's some deep feels by the end of this issue. I really enjoyed it. This was a fun issue. So, now, I gave you guys in the beginning of the video a whole rundown of everything that's gone on so far. I've left out stuff, I'm sure. I'm sure I'll come back to this video later and be like, either I messed something up or I said something wrong, because I literally crammed all those books into one big throw out into what we're up to now. But anyway, this is after Casey's meeting with her father. And the father finding it interesting about her visions, yada yada. So she's with her friends Stephanie and West, and they're talking, and she tells them what happened with the father, and that the father offered to help more, and that she can go talk with him and they could talk more, but she doesn't want to go alone. So she ends up going with Stephanie and West. And West kind of is a little freaking out about it, because he's a huge Invulnerable fan. And he freaks out even further when sitting next to his basic idol. There's a really great conversation in the, at the I guess it's a milkshake place or a burger place. And what they decide to do is Casey and Invulnerable go to the orphanage where he grew up. And they're looking for information about his past. And they go inside. We get to meet the person that was basically like a mom to Jim, who's Invulnerable. That's his first name. She talks with them. She gives him the one piece of paper information she has on him. which basically says he was found in Kansas. And I will say one thing, without spoiling it, there's something not exactly truthful when it comes to, or not exactly upfront when it comes to the woman that raised him from the orphanage. Could play into something later on, I don't know. But then, you know, Invulnerable and Casey, they're going over all the stuff he found, and it's not working. It's not adding up, or it seems pretty weird, and it's kind of like a cold case. And Casey's still very weary about the woman who raised her father, and then of course there's an incident, and Invulnerable jumps in to save the day, and then something goes wrong, and Casey has to go in, and she jumps in to save her dad, and this by far was my favorite part of the book, because there is a heartwarming, heartfelt conversation between her and her dad, and the father kind of opens up to Casey a bit, and Casey kind of opens up to the father, and I just loved it. I thought that the emotion at the end of this book, especially the last 4 pages, the emotion that we feel from both Casey and Invulnerable is really deep and definitely a cornerstone in this book. I really liked it, and you could appreciate this, especially knowing the situation where Invulnerable was not a part of his daughter's life for years and years and years, and the resentment that Casey had at him for it. But at the same time, you get all these admissions when things happen, and I really enjoyed this issue a lot. This issue was a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I take a half star away. The artwork is it takes a little bit of getting used to, I will say that, and there are a certain couple of pictures here or there where things are a little bit, not sketchy, but like the eyes are a little bit big. But I gotta say one thing about Wayne Brown's art is I feel the emotion, regardless how much how kind of I feel about the art. I feel every single emotion that he's drawing on paper. I will say that, and that's a huge plus, even though sometimes his artwork, you know, like I said, there's just certain moments where it gets a little sketchy, but I'll tell you guys, when he draws an angry character, you know that character's angry. When he draws certain emotions, you feel it in his artwork, and I definitely appreciate that. And again, just minor little things here or there that I would say need a little bit of touching up. But again, the book's only in its 4th issue. There's a lot of growing that's still going to happen. There's going to be a next issue 5, I'm sure. And you guys know there's a guy with 2 thumbs and 2 fingers right here that will definitely be backing Like Father, Like Daughter, issue number 5. This was my favorite issue so far. If you have not been reading Like Father, Like Daughter, absolutely go out. Get your hands on the first 3 issues. The 3 issues are out now from Short Fuse Comics. I believe that's what they call it. It's shortfusemediagroup.com. You want a link? This link is a little bigger for issue number 3. So here's your link. If you want a link, come on, camera. This camera is sucky when it comes to zooming in at times, but we're going to get it. We're going to get it. We might not get it. I'll put a link in the description below. For some reason, the link doesn't want to work. But anyway, Like Father, Like Daughter, issue number 4. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Excellent book. Highly recommend you guys check out the issue. It's emotional. I left out all the dialogue at the end because you have to read it for yourself to truly respect and really just take in and feel that last moment of this book. And I look forward to what's going to happen next, because the tone of the book up until this point was one way. Now things are possibly going another. Plus, something's going on in the background, and we don't know what's going on in the background. Something possibly connected to Invulnerable's past. Something conspiracy surrounding Invulnerable. We don't know, but it's going to be very interesting to find it out, and I will definitely be there to find it out. So with that, guys, it's up to you guys. Let me know in the comments below. What did you guys think of Like Father, Like Daughter, issue 4? What do you think of Like Father, Like Daughter, the full series so far? I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. And until next time, as always, I'm your Dark Avenger Chris, and you're watching Dark Avenger C86. If you haven't subscribed yet, hopefully you'll click that sub button, because there's a bunch of stuff coming up soon right here on Dark Avenger C86. And there's also a notification bell if you'd like to be notified whenever I go live. We're going to be going live with the Dark Avenger comic book review series as of issue 401 right here on this channel. Anyway, like I said, links will be in the description below for Like Father, Like Daughter for shortfusemedia.com. Check it out. And until next time, everybody, take care, keep reading, keep collecting, and I'll see you guys soon. There's a lot more still to come in the next video. Take care, everybody.